I'm Eric Chapman. Welcome to Dispatches, the York Regional Police podcast. And this is a great episode because who doesn't love dogs? Well, cat people, but that's a whole other thing. There are some tools of the trade in policing that often catch the eye of the public when they are used, but reevaluating their use when and where they're deployed is a constant process, but understanding what their potential value is and why is also important. So I'd like to welcome my guests to the show, and we're just going to go around the horn, and maybe you could just introduce yourselves and what department you're in, and why did you get into policing?
Sure. So my name is Staff Sergeant Aaron Busby. I'm with the Marine and Underwater Recovery Unit. Got into policing about 24 years ago, and just like the idea of always being involved and helping out.
Yeah, cool. Let's go you, Mr. K9.
My name is Mark Hannon, the Staff Sergeant in charge of the K9 unit here at York Regional Police. Very similar to Aaron, I've been in policing roughly 25 years. And it was something that I wanted to do from a really young age. No police in the family, so it was a bit of an eye-opener. But just something I was always interested in from a really young age.
Do you remember what it was that got you when you were that young? Like, what was it? Chips? Did you watch Chips?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah,
definitely. But it was even before that. I got pictures of about 3. My grandfather had like a little police uniform made for me, and I used to wear that around and bomb around in the basement on a bike that I guess at the time made sense.
Yeah, sure. That's great. Cool. All right.
My name's Steve McKenzie. I'm a sergeant in our emergency response unit. I'm the baby of the group. I've only been on 18 years. And
wow. Still a while though.
It's still a while to go. Yeah. What got me into policing was much like my counterparts here, was just a desire to serve. As you asked that question about, some of the other motivators, I watched a lot of Cops growing up on Fox.
Really?
And that was a big motivator to see some of that stuff. So yeah.
Wow. And you love it? Still love it? Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you love the most about it?
Catching bad guys.
Yeah.
Just
sticking to the Cops theme. Yeah.
Plain and simple as that. There are bad people out there and they need to be stopped. And, I've been fortunate to learn under these officers in different capacities, and, catching bad guys is the number one goal of being an officer.
Okay. All right. And you're dedicated to it.
I love it. Yeah.
All right. That's cool. Okay. So let's start with you then. It's mostly known as SWAT, Special Weapons and Tactics, but here, what is it?
So here it's the ERU, so the Emergency Response Unit. We assist uniformed investigators with any type of call or situation that's outside of their training or equipment that they have. We bring to the table a variety of tools, whether it's with armed suspects or people who are in mental distress. Our number one goal is to apprehend or arrest people using the minimal amount of force possible. Okay. And I think we do a very good job here of that.
Okay. How many officers are in the unit?
We have 30 right now.
Okay.
So we have 4 sergeants, including myself. We have 1 staff sergeant, and the rest are constables.
Now you're taking over when other officers don't have the tactics. What kind of training? Is it a regular training and schedule? And can you take us through some of the stuff you maybe do?
Yeah, so we have a variety of specialists on the team, ranging from snipers to bomb techs to rappel masters to breachers. We have all specific training to those tasks. We also have a variety of standards that we need to meet when it comes to firearm qualifications and when it comes to our physical abilities. And so these are all things that have to be taken into account when we're training our members. I'm currently the sergeant in charge of training.
Oh, okay.
So there's adequacy standards that we have to abide by.
How often?
How often yearly for quals. Okay. But we shoot probably between 1 and 2 times a month.
Oh, okay.
And then we've been very operationally heavy as of late in regards to the amount of calls. And so, in regards to our members, our training has been sometimes has to be pushed aside for operational calls. And because of the sheer amount of operational calls as of late, it's good and bad because you're getting that real world experience, but unfortunately we're not able to always do as much training as we'd like.
Right. How often are you deployed? The unit?
In regards to calls, I would say operational calls, we're probably deployed, I'd say at least once to twice a day. And when it comes to planned, say warrant or other operations, we're probably in the ballpark of 2 to 3 a week.
Oh, okay. So regularly.
Yep.
Yeah. What kind of microscope or lens is that the deployment put under? Are there certain standards that have to be met before you guys are sent out?
Yeah, in regards to some of our armed barricade calls where you have a subject in a house, for example, a house where they've barricaded themselves in the residence and they may have a weapon, that's where we would come in and take over in regards to containment and just trying to bring that call to a positive resolution. Also in regards to the EDU capacity, so our explosive disposal unit, if there is anything that has been verified in regards to, say, an IED, so an improvised explosive device, a white powder, anything of that nature, we're going to roll our bomb text to that.
Okay. All right, let's go to the Marine unit. How big is the unit and where do you patrol?
Within the region, we have 32 bodies of water and 11 rivers.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
Some of the bodies of water are smaller, of course, but the biggest body of water that we police is Lake Simcoe within the region. There are a number of other agencies that also assist on the water. However, Lake Simcoe is 744 square kilometers, so it's quite large. To put that in perspective, the city of Toronto is 630. So if you were to pick up the city of Toronto and put it in the lake, it'd be an island. So it's a very large body of water due to the different depths in different areas. It can turn up quite quickly. Our unit is 12 members strong. We police we have a boathouse right on the water up in Jackson's Point. So it's at the northern tip of our region. We police 12 months of the year. We're also the underwater recovery team. So every one of our Marine members are also specialists in underwater recovery.
Oh, wow. Well, can we get into that? Is there tech involved? Like, what does underwater recovery involve?
So underwater recovery is just simply that. It's officers that deploy below the surface of the water. We deploy for a number of different reasons. Sometimes, unfortunately, it's to recover human remains. Sometimes it's to deploy evidence and then other investigative avenues. We also have a number of different pieces of equipment to support that. So members can go down with metal detectors that are fully submersible. We also have different side scan sonars that will drag behind a boat and we'll be able to see any anomalies on the bottom of the lake if we're looking for someone or something. That's how we'll deploy with that.
Okay. Do you do lots of, because the lake is so big, are you the only jurisdiction that patrols it, or do you do lots of multi-jurisdictional work with other departments?
So we're happy to work with multi-jurisdictional officers, and there's even some response with some fire services out on the water. So we're able to assist and help each other out because sometimes when we're looking for someone, based on the fact that the lake is so big and based on the fact we only have so many officers on at one time, we try to bring them the other services in for a lot of support.
Let's see. Do you patrol a lot, or is it lots of just response to calls?
We do some patrol.
Yeah.
We make sure that in the summertime, especially on weekends, we're out. We're a very community-oriented unit. We try to walk the beaches. We do a lot of water safety initiatives for young people. Like I said, we'll walk the beaches and we'll interact with a lot of the community. We also do things on land, so we're also supporting our search and rescue units. We come self-contained, so we show up. We have all of our own equipment. We have UTVs and ETVs and airboats for the winter to be able to respond in ice situations. We do all of the training for the uniform members in their cold water rescue response, just to try to get those assets on ground quicker.
Wow. What's the number one issue out on the water that you find that you maybe want to share, that so people are more aware of it and they don't participate in that event or whatever it is?
I think that the biggest thing is that the people are not prepared to go in that lake.
I
think a lot of people just they take for granted and maybe they've spent a bit of time on a smaller lake, maybe on a cottage boat, and they don't understand that Lake Simcoe, like I said, is quite large. A lot of them they'll go out, they don't know how to use electronics, they don't know how to ask for help. So we'll get a lot of calls, and usually they'll say, I'm in the middle of Lake Simcoe, and that's a big spot. So we're just not exactly sure where to find them, and that hinders our operation.
Right. Okay. All right. That's good to know. All right. What's it like having a dog as your partner?
Well, I don't currently have a dog as my partner now, and the role that I have now, it's more administrative, but I did spend a period of time in the unit, and I had 3 different police service dogs.
Did you?
It's a different relationship because you're really with the dog more than you're with your friends, more than with your family, more than with your coworkers, because you work a block of 2 days, 2 nights, and then you're off for four days. But during those 4 12-hour shifts, you're with that dog, and then on your days off, the dog comes home with you. So, there's quite a bond that you develop with the dog.
And do you get them at a fairly young age?
Yeah, anywhere from 10 months to 24 months would normally be where we were looking for the dog. When we get the dogs, they have no training whatsoever. So some of the issues that come up with a dog beyond that 24-month period, they might have already had some training put into them, and it might not be the training that we were looking for. So we prefer to have dogs that have no training, and we have trainers on staff that look after that.
What's career length for a canine?
It really depends. 10 years or the life of the dog.
Wow.
Depending on what comes first. We've had some members that haven't remained in the unit that long, and we've had other members that have been much beyond that point. As I mentioned, we do all our own training in-house. So there is a level of expertise that's built up over the years, and that isn't going to be something that's going to come about quickly.
Mm-hmm.
So we have been fortunate to be able to retain some members much beyond that time.
Well, Bree, are they all German Shepherds?
It's a little bit of both. That's, I think, what most people, if you get somebody says to you, police dog, that's probably the first thing that you think of. But there's a lot of other dogs that are utilized, Belgian Malinois, some Dutch Shepherds. And then for detector work, you see some retrievers, dogs of that nature.
Does their ability to sniff things out ever cease to amaze you?
Yeah, it's not as much now as when I first got into the unit, because I think I was a little skeptical, like some others, and it's quite impressive. Their ability to detect whatever odor it is that you're looking for is.
And it's anything you can train them to. How do you train a dog to sniff something?
It depends what it is. So our dogs are trained to track an individual. That's basically following the scent.
Okay.
From point A to point B. And when I say scent, that's going to be a combination of skin rafts. All of us, as we're sitting here, as we're doing anything, we have dead skin cells that are going to be falling off of our body. So the combination of those, the food that we're eating, the types of deodorants we use, the type of where we're living.
Your Axe body spray, if you wear it.
Exactly. And then if you're out and you're disturbing the ground, so that combination creates like a set picture for the dog, and that's what the dog's following. So the dogs are trained to track the basic canine handler course, where they learn to track. They learn to search buildings, learn obedience. That's 3 months, and then beyond that, once they finish that course, once the handler and the dog go out, because each member is assigned a dog. It isn't like a pool of dogs and you go in one day and grab one.
Right.
Each member is assigned a dog. So once you finish that basic canine handler course, which is about 3 months, we'll normally have that handler, and when I use the term handler, that's the officer that's assigned to the unit and looks after the dog. Normally after a year, then we'll cross-train that dog in one profile. So it would either be explosives, human remains, narcotics, firearms, or currency.
You said the intensity of the training and the relationship with the dog is sticking in my head. What's like a typical day with the dog? Like, how often are you with that dog? Like, I mean, all day long, but are you constantly training and teaching, and him to you and them to you as well, I guess?
So we're very, very fortunate. Like Marine and like the ERU, we're a regional support unit. So we provide support to the frontline members and investigative branches. So there is time set aside for us to train. And normally, if there isn't a specific call for service that we can be of assistance, we'll be spending time through our shift training every day and all the different profiles that the dogs are responsible for.
And it must be really handy having the training on site. I'm staying at the hotel just across, and I was watching whoever was training yesterday, and it seemed like, it's hardcore.
Yeah. So those were 2 new handlers that just started. I think they're on day 8.
Okay.
So they just started 2 weeks ago, and
What happens when they retire?
When they retire, they become a pet. So
They do, eh? They just go, they get adopted?
Yeah, they get adopted out to usually the handler
I
takes them,
love
and then
that.
they come home and they become a pet because although if you watch TV, there's shows on TV now, and the dog comes home and drives in the front seat with the guy or girl, and then comes home and the dog's running around the house. Well, it doesn't quite work like that. There's a break between like home life and work here. Home life isn't too stimulating, just so work is the only name in the game. So they're very motivated to work once they get here. So they're normally kept separate from the family. They normally live in a kennel outside, just so they're acclimatized to the weather, both warm and cold. But a lot of times, once they retire, then they're brought indoors, and the level of stimulation that they have by their retirement isn't quite what it was during the working stages.
So they still react though sometimes if you say certain words. Oh, and do you train them in English, or I've heard that sometimes they're trained in German?
They can be, depending on where the dog is from. They could have had some brief training, and it could be in Czechoslovak, it could be in German, but normally we revert back over to English.
I'm just wondering, what do you want the public to know about the ER unit? Because just sort of the climate now, the way people are when they see units like yours out, they're really, people, they react to it. So I'm wondering if you, what would you want to say about the ER unit to those people that, have that sort of feeling about it?
Well, what I mentioned before in regards to when we deploy, we are always looking to use the minimum amount of force that is necessary to achieve a positive outcome. So whether it be someone who's in crisis, who has armed themselves with a weapon, or whether it be a violent criminal, we are constantly assessing and reassessing what we are bringing to ground in regards to tools and what tactics we are employing to safely take that person into custody, whether that person is going to go to jail or the hospital. It is something that we do not take lightly. We understand the current climate, and we have a very high standard within the team where we are constantly debriefing every call that we go to, and essentially nitpicking at each other, because we understand how important it is that accountability. If you're going to get better, you need to be able to look at yourself in the mirror and each other and say, hey, by the way, like, this is something we should focus on. And that has really brought, as I said before, our standard to a very high level, in my opinion.
Yeah. Wow. That's good to know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So how often do you have to requalify for the ERU?
So there's numerous weapon systems that we have to requalify on. To start at the beginning, before an officer can become a member of our unit, they have to be in uniform for a certain amount of time. And then there's a stringent process that they have to go through in regards to even being an applicant for the team.
Can you take us through maybe a few things of what that is?
Sure. Yeah. There's going to be what we call selection week. And that is a week of a lot of uncomfortable things that they go under in regards to stress-filled situations. We go through some phobia training. Once that takes place and they are successful, they'll go on to numerous courses that we have. It's approximately 9 to 12 weeks of training. And then there'll be an alternate for the team. So what happens is they're not actually on the team as of yet. Now, in regards to once they make the team, the requalifications is everything from our physical to, like I said, our weapon systems, our less lethal systems. So our T7 taser, there's other less lethal tools that we bring to the table in regards to they have to be requalified on an RWIN, which is essentially a rubber bullet gun. So yeah, that would be the vast majority. In regards to driving, there's also some driving stuff that we need to take care of because of some of our vehicles. I think that our rappel specific guys, they need to do their quals. Our snipers have to do their quals, and our EDU techs, we are currently looking at a system where we can requalify them in-house. We go to the Canadian Police College for our initial training for bomb training, but we're looking to do something more in-house in the future.
All right. In the Marine unit, what kind of boats? Do you have speedboats and flotation? Like, what do you have? for
Yeah,
boats?
So we have a number of different vessel platforms. So we have two large vessel platforms, which are all metal boats for me by hike. They're roughly 40 feet long, weigh 22,000 pounds each. We also have, we call it a QRV, so it's a quick response vessel. So it's a inflatable boat with twin 200s. It can handle rough water. However, it's able to get places pretty quick. We also have another all metal boat that we use for in and land bodies of water for dive response, that type of thing. We also have an airboat. That airboat is it's like a large fan boat, a little bit different than the ones you see in Florida. However, this has the capability of transitioning from water to ice and then back.
Wow.
So it's able to respond when the ice is break up or freeze up. We also have PWCs, so we're out on Sea-Doos as well, and then we have the ATVs, all the land, the off-road vehicles, so ATVs, UTVs, that type of thing.
So many types of boats. Are you constantly training on how to drive and react in certain situations and conditions?
Yes. So our officers go on quite lengthy course where actually York Regional Police has the ability to sign off through Transport Canada. So we're able to do our own in-house training for that. But some of the training requires, and some of the boats actually require special licensing. So once you are a member for 2 years, you can challenge the test through Transport Canada and you're able to pilot the larger boats. So you have to have a master's license to operate those vessels.
Oh, wow. That's no joke. Cool. You mentioned before recovery. I'm picturing a diver, down in the bottom silt everywhere. It's probably not very. Can you get a little more into description of that and anything that is used to support maybe some tech or drones that are used to support you in searches in the dark, cold water?
Yeah. So our officers deploy in water that is not normally deployed in. So we're not considered recreational divers. In fact, our members have to go off and they're actually commercial divers. So we attend a school locally. They're gone. They're full-time students for over 2 months before they come back, and that's just the beginning of it. We train and we dive both scuba and also surface supplied. So we're actually able to push air down to the diver through a umbilical line. These officers are always online, so we have special search patterns based on the fact that once you're down in the bottom, often you're diving in zero visibility, and all you're doing is you're reaching out and touching things. So we're able to deploy the diver by line signals, and also they have communications with us. But once the diver deploys and goes to the bottom, a lot of times they have no idea where they are, and all they do is they keep tension on the line, and we spin the diver off the line. So they're able to search just with their hands. Now, prior to going down, if we're able to, we do have some ROVs, and those ROVs are usually used in an area where it's either heavily contaminated water or in an area which it would not be safe to deploy a diver. We try to put this machine down. It does have the ability to move around on its own, piloted by the operator up on the surface. It does have video capability, and it actually has a claw, so we're able to reach out and grab things.
Oh, what is it? What does it look like?
It's small. It's probably the size of a beach ball.
It's tiny.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And we're able to deploy it down into the water. And like I said, it has an umbilical line and it's powered from the top. So we don't have to worry about batteries wearing out. We're able to move it around. But again, like it relies on view. So if we're in an area where there is no view, then we're not able to use that. Then we're back to the diver.
Huh. Wow. It's a lot of training of feeling. Like you probably can close your eyes and figure out what things. You're good at that Halloween game when you stick your hand in to figure out what it is. That's an amazing thing, a talent to be able to have. That's really impressive.
A lot of officers actually, when they're on the bottom, they actually just close their eyes.
Is that right, eh?
They can't see anything anyway. Yeah. So it's actually, for spatial awareness, it's just better for them to close their eyes, and then they just reach out and they feel.
Have you experienced that? Have you gone down? Yeah. Just going to take it back so everybody understands. What does ROV stand for, so we know what we're talking about here?
So ROV just stands for remotely operated vehicle.
Okay, perfect. You mentioned phobia in the training. I'm wondering, in a lot of explanations of the training for officers, you really do get to know yourself with things like that, don't you? And how does that help you as an officer?
It starts to speak to your own personal limitations, which we all have. And, it puts a certain amount of responsibility on each individual officer to push themselves through those limitations, because, the day may come when your life or another officer's life or, civilian's life may require you to do something that you're very uncomfortable doing. So I do think that the phobia training is very important. And as you heard from Staff Sergeant Busby in regards to, blackout conditions, confined spaces, those are training situations that we'll put our members through in order to ensure that they can operate in that environment, although they may be very uncomfortable doing so.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Thanks. Cool tech and special units is great, but knowing why these types of units are needed and what scenarios they're deployed in helps the public better understands the methods used and, of course, why. I'd like to thank my guests for joining me today. For Dispatches, I'm Eric Chapman.